Welcome. Glad everybody is here. Welcome to our session on the business of Web3. Is it sustainable? I am your host, Grant McGaugh. I'm CEO of Five Star BDM, where we help you to build a five-star brand that people will follow. So we want to get started. I think we're going to have some fun for this next hour. We have some very good panelists. This session will explore some of the most popular Web3 questions, such as, is Web3 the next evolutionary step after Web 2.0? We'll see. Will it take mobile, social, and cloud to an entirely different level to help solve the human dilemma of sustainability? Will it take us to a new experience of freedom, creativity, and imagination? Let's see how our panel will engage with these questions today as we explore a little deeper into the world of Web 3.0. So let's see if we've got everybody in the room. I know we're cycling up.
Man, speaking of cycling, my name is NiKole Maxwell, and I'm the CEO of Black Multiverse Enterprises and the founder of Blackverse, a metaverse community. And I'm really happy to be here today. How about you, Hans?
Oh, I'm excited as well. I'm the co-founder of Black Love with my wife, and I'm the creator and co-founder of Love and Tea as well. I'm excited to be here.
I think I'm back. Is
Yeah, the
everybody
audio.
off of mute?
We can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to make sure. I couldn't hear for a second. I apologize. Like we got kicked off the network for a moment, but I am back. So let's do some introductions. Since I just heard NiKole's voice, let's have the goddess of the metaverse introduce herself for this particular session.
You know what? We just did that, but I am definitely, I appreciate the nickname. They also call me Technical. So, yes, my name is NiKole Maxwell, CEO of Black Multiverse Enterprises and the founder of Blackverse, which is a metaverse community. And very happy to be here. We are having our metaverse summit tomorrow. So, just really excited to be able to talk about everything and talk about sustainability in business and the future in the metaverse.
Yep, that's a very important subject. Then we've got the Wizard of Hahz, Mr. Hahz Terry. I don't know if you've introduced yourself, but I'd like you to go ahead and just level set the playing field.
Yeah, I'm the co-founder of Black Love Org and the creator and co-founder of Love and Tea with partnership with my wife.
I think that's awesome. And I saw both of you have got a lot of experience in this field. We were expecting a few more panelists. I'm not sure if they're going to be able to join or not, but we're going to go ahead and get going because you have so much to let us know about. I want to have a just a candid discussion about the pros and cons about Web3, Web 3.0. You know, we're currently sitting in a state at Web 2.0. We're in this world right now. You know, it's mobile, it's cloud computing, it's, you know, the two-dimensional we're kind of used to. 3D is there, blockchain is there, but is it really going to solve all the problems around sustainability? So my first question is going to be to you, Hahz. How do you see Web.3 in its current state being able to solve some problems in humanity that are not currently addressed?
Great question. I think that's the question that everybody wants to figure out. Ideally, our solution to this problem is love ultimately, which is the only true currency in the fifth dimension. Ideally, the issue with Web3 not being received by the masses is because it's being explained technically, and it's not just technical; it's spiritual. And I think until we ultimately understand what currency is, we solve the problem. Humanity solved the problem is that we don't need the technology to create the solutions. We're too dependent currently on technology, but once we learn, currency is created within. Everything that we kind of utilize from a technology aspect is created within. So that's our first and foremost priority of teaching our tribe about currency. And once we unlock that or learn it for the first time, what it really means, will we solve that problem?
Agreed. Agreed. I'm going to spin that right over to NiKole. Same question. I'd like to get her take. How do you feel this new platform could help solve some of our human dilemmas?
I mean, I'm a metaverse enthusiast for sure. So for me, I say this all the time. I feel like I've been in the metaverse my whole life. Dating back to Star Trek gaming and just kind of growing up being the oddball, doing these things and experiencing technology in different ways from the people around me. Whereas most people were having troubles with that, I was not that person. I enjoyed it and embraced it. So how does it change and how does it solve problems for the world that we are living in right now? We're seeing great use cases for that every day. People are again spurred to innovation. It's been kind of dormant for a long time, it feels like, where the whole world seems to be innovating at one time. Once you dip your toes in this space, it's like it's never ending. And we are constantly seeing new innovations come up from training. Being able to see firefighters not have to go out into the field to actually do training, but to be able to do it in a virtual space, to healthcare. And we have a lady that we know, and she is a nurse practitioner of sorts, and she creates 3D virtual spaces and created 3D virtual spaces for COVID to help people kind of understand and bring a new line of awareness. But when we take that and we push all those things that are virtual into the actual metaverse where it's interconnected and interoperable, and we are all kind of humming along to the same tune, but in a decentralized fashion, the possibilities are endless for what we can actually do. And so that's when I get excited about it. So yes, it can definitely change what we can do because it increases our capabilities beyond anything that we're able to touch now.
I agree with both of you. I think you're touching on some great points. We have to look beyond the technology. I've been in technology for over 20 plus years. Technology is an enabler. By itself, it can do very little, just like a car without any gas, or you don't put the keys in it, or if you don't have direction for it to go, it cannot help you. Technology is the same way. We have to point it to a problem, situation, challenge in which we can help that situation be better. Technology is very, very good when it comes to collaboration, communication. It's excellent in that. It's very, very, very good when we get to the collapsing of windows of time. It's excellent at that. And when I look at Web 3.0, the thing that I really like about it is the AI component to be where the internet becomes context aware, which could be scary when you kind of look at some of the sci-fi stuff to come out, like movies like Her, where you're interacting with an artificial intelligence just like you would a human being that is so sentient that it can predict with very good certainty what issues are going to be, whether it's an emotional plane, a mental plane, or a physical plane. that it's going to be, that brings together some things that we're going to have to deal with. But the AI component with then a more trusted source like blockchain creates a new playing field. So my question is this, and I want to direct this question to Hahz because he's been in this world. In the Web 2.0 world, because you've got big giant tech players like the Googles, the Facebooks, the Twitters that have really grown very rich on the fact that they have owned the Web dot two space, and the fact that if you are not in the space and understanding SEO, search engine optimization, to get your content out into the masses, that could change in Web 3.0. Can you kind of talk to me about what that whole industry could be turned upside down? What do you think about that?
Great question. Ideally, I've been in the digital marketing space for 20 years now. I've watched it grow from SEO, organic search engine optimization. I watched the algorithms on these platforms that you mentioned become implemented in a way where the end goal is to prevent the content from being seen. So ideally, my first internet venture was a blog that amassed millions of followers, and once I witnessed my ad revenue decline from six figures to every check was less and less. Ideally, because of the algorithms being implemented, it was easy for me to create content that was hyper focused on Atlanta, that would be on the page the first page, the top three search results the next day. Then I slowly witnessed this rollback of my content being harder to be seen because they were selling this, what I call digital real estate, to the companies that were onboarding around roughly 2008 to the internet. So with that said, ideally these platforms that we utilize on a day-to-day basis, we feed them free content, free unique content in exchange for likes and followers. But they make it hard for our content to be seen, as if I would say Instagram engagement rate is 2% currently. So 2% of your followers see your content unless you pay. PPC is pay per click. All these social media platforms utilize the same algorithmic formula of wanting the end user to pay for their content to be seen. So this brings us to Web 3. Web 3 is when these algorithms don't exist. Love NFT is set up to replicate Web 2 Instagram, but you own your content as an NFT. So you can monetize your content. You don't need a million followers to generate a sustainable living, to be able to pay your bills by working working X amount of hours to create content in hopes of getting likes and followers, in hopes of being able to monetize your platform. This blueprint is used on YouTube, Instagram, Google, where your content is being these algorithms are used to prevent people from seeing your content. So at what point do we say we're no longer going to use these platforms because they're not in our best interest? We're working for these platforms ideally by creating content for them to be able to allow them to sell our content on the back end to the corporations, sell this data, sell this algorithm that we've created for them, and we can't monetize off of it. That's a problem, and that's what we have to educate users about, is that you can work less, and one NFT can sell for X amount of six figures, a million, whatever amount that you can sell it for, but you own that content as a one of one NFT instead of giving that content away. So we have to understand our value ultimately of our content first, to see how valuable Web3 is, and how valuable owning a digital asset is ultimately. And that's what we're focused on as a blockchain nonprofit, to work with small businesses to allow them to onboard to Web3 by way of creating an NFT marketing strategy for them to create the capital needed to sustain their business in this pandemic.
This is exciting. I like to hear that. To see what will it look like when the third party is removed. And it's just a matter of going direct to your audience that you've built. I want to ask NiKole that because I've talked to her numerous times, and she insists when you talk about decentralization, help the audience understand the current state, which is centralized, and then the world of Web.3, which is decentralized, and what are the advantages of that?
This is such a good question, mainly because tomorrow we're having the Power of Decentralization conference. So, if you want to dive into that more, definitely tap into the Blackverse Summit. You can find tickets on Eventbrite. But, Hans talked about what I'm going to sum up as us being consumers. So we are consumers and we are the ones putting out the data, but also we're sitting there being consumed by our technology all day long. Right now, my Google Home Hub is listening to me and waiting for me to give it its command words, but it's actually processing the information that I'm talking to it right now, so that there's no delay once I do actually say those magical words. There is we saw this actually happen in real time over the summer, uh, when Elon Musk proposed to buy Twitter. $44 billion was on the line, and you, me, everybody else who was out on Twitter, we were the ones being sold and transacted. Our data is what was being sold and transacted. So that is kind of the difference, between um, now and the possibility of the future. And I can't say the future because we still have an opportunity for that future not to be created in this way. We are all here because we care about the metaverse and we care about decentralization, and we want to make sure that this is the message that is brought forward. But there's the opposite side of this, and these are these big companies that are out here that are, kind of watering down the idea of decentralization in Web3. And we see that far too often. They are coming with all their money and all their funds and none of our Web3 principles and ideals. And so that's what we're seeing, where we have these great spaces that are being created. They're fun to go to and they're amazing, and they're calling themselves Web3, but there's no empowerment for the owner. There's no empowerment for the individual, and there's no transactions actually being processed in crypto. And so when we think about stuff like that, we have fiat that is taking a very large footstep in our Web3 that we want to build out. And, in order for us to get to where we need to go in the metaverse, we can't have that. We cannot be consumed continually when we are interconnected and interoperable in the future of the metaverse. So that's what I will say to that, Grant. We got to make sure that we understand that there's two metaverses being built out, and not all of them are talking about decentralization for sure.
I totally understand that. You said something, both of you said something that's so important that I need the audience to truly grasp and understand. You are what's valuable. You are the real money. You as an individual, as a person, as part of the community. You are what is the gold. You are the rainbow. You are it. So wherever you are, they want to know where the herd is going. So they can then begin to do what they've always done and try to manipulate and control. This happens all the time in worlds where certain groups will try to dominate another group uh, uh, resources. Basically, you are the resource. I want everyone to understand that you are the resource. So I'm not saying that you're going to change human behavior overnight. Probably not. But you can change the game. I see Web 3.0 as a game changer. That, yeah, you can consume my data, but every time you resell my data, every time you consume my creative and what I've done, I get a piece of that pie. Right now, I don't know anybody, unless you own stock in Twitter or Meta or Google and some of these giant players, you're not getting anything. And you're just communicating peer to peer with your friends, your family, and your coworkers, and you're not getting anything. But they are monitoring that activity, in order to then push advertisement to you. And then if you're not awake and you're asleep, they want you to take advantage of whatever it is that they're selling. There's nothing inherently, I'm going to say, completely wrong with that. You just need to be aware of it. Be aware of what's happening and be aware of what Web 3.0 can bring to the table. So I'm going to use this word that I've heard over and over again over this different conference that we've had for Gatherbirds, and that's ownership. Let's talk about ownership. I want to know what keeps you up at night, Terry, about now this thing called ownership. You talked about your money, your check. You had this this great plan that worked for SEO. You got this money, and then you seen it going down and down and down because you couldn't control it. Now with ownership, what does that do for you?
It allows you to monetize what your creation. I think, in comparison to Web 2, we had to, as you mentioned earlier, utilize a middleman to be able to sell our products and services. I think the greatest way to explain Web3 without using technical terms um, is d-commerce, is why we created a d-commerce market. To use an analogy that people are familiar with when it comes to e-commerce, I've ran successful e-commerce companies. I've managed, tremendous PPC budgets for companies through my PPC agency. I've witnessed the back end of how all this works and how ultimately the pandemic was bound to happen, being that you have small businesses competing for the same PPC keywords as Amazon or Etsy. We utilize these platforms and we allow them to own our data of how we conduct our business on the e-commerce platform, and we pay them ultimately to resell our business and to replace our products with their own products, as we watch on Amazon for years. So we're giving all the data needed to run a successful business without us. So this leads us to 60% of our workforce is going to be replaced by AI robots. And we've been feeding these platforms, these Web2 platforms for years, giving them the blueprints of how to run a business without us, to ultimately replace us. And the first step of replacing us, what we're seeing now is social media influencers. Love NFT has reached out to, some influencers. And ultimately, I think that until we remove this ego of who we think we are, will we see the value of unity? Because that's the ultimate goal of blockchain, is unity. As you mentioned earlier, the strength in numbers. We're now able to, one, unite, and then ensure trust that we can pay each other with smart contracts. These were two of the biggest issues were with unity. It's how we're going to get, how can we monetize this, and then how can we ensure that we're going to get paid. So these barriers are removed now. So this leads us to d-commerce. We're now able to sell our products and our creations in a way where we remove the middleman, and we sell it in the peer-to-peer fashion, where we own, or we earn 100% of our earnings. We're still utilizing these Web2 platforms where they're giving us a bigger piece of the pie, but they're still involved in every transaction. And we have to understand the value of our content. Like art, you can't put a price on what we create as a culture, as creators. So you have to, one, know the value of what you create, because there's no more ceiling of what something could be worth on Web3. That's what we have to understand, because we're currently giving all of our creations away, but then on the back end, we complain when it's stolen and it's monetized by another culture vulture, which we witness time and time again. But at what point do we change our formula and try something different? And this is where we, onboard to blockchain to ultimately answer your question of experience true ownership, because a lot of us don't understand what that truly means, because we didn't have the privilege of obtaining assets as other cultures have. So we didn't see the value in when blockchain was emerging, and people are talking about NFTs and tokens and digital assets, it doesn't resonate with our culture because a lot of us didn't. We truly don't understand what a asset is ultimately. So this is the education aspect of what's needed.
You're getting into the DeFi space. That is that's finance, right? And understanding what an asset truly is. An asset really is something that gains in value, and like real estate, like in insurance policies, in things, stocks, bonds, things of that nature. So if you have an asset, that truly is something that actually will inherently, supposedly, grow in value, especially over time. Cryptocurrency, no difference. If you look at it from a stock lens, you might understand it a little bit better. So I'm going to go over to Miss NiKole. She does a lot in her consulting business. She lives in that world where you're talking to people that are currently in this Web 2.0 space. They're conducting a business and they're curious about how can I monetize Web 3.0 creative advantage by doing so. Would you like to that?
Yes, Grant, you cut out a little bit, but I think I heard the question. You know, when you're making the transition from Web 2 to Web 3, kind of as a business owner, what questions are you actually asking? And there are a ton of questions to be asking. One is, what's in it for me? And that's usually the one that we lead with, right? I meet people where they are when we're consulting, whether you are somebody who is an artist or you are someone who has created an invention and you're trying to see, how do you do that with the blockchain, or how do you take your business and create a membership program, or create something that provides access and value to someone else. You know, the business owners, they know their business, and what they don't know is the blockchain, and so they need to fill that gap in, and that's really what I help them to do, is kind of understand what it is that they want and where they're going to. But for me, it's bigger than just the blockchain, because I am mainly a metaverse consultant, and so it is defining what that actual experience is going to be, because the metaverse is about the experience. When you're looking at being a business, what experience are you looking to create? And I think one of the ways to do that with Web 2 in mind is to think about, you're setting up a brand new website. So you go through a process for defining your requirements and what you want it to look like, what you want it to feel like. You get with your designer and your developer, and they help you to create the back end that makes sense and the front end that works. And so, that has the experience and look and feel that your customers are going to be delighted with. And then you get with someone else and they help you with SEO. So that's not different for the metaverse. When you're thinking about the metaverse, especially when it's decentralized, you start with education. You make sure that the company understands what the blockchain is, and then you do process reengineering, which I've spent my adult career doing, is reengineering process through implementation. And so you define what that actual as is process is, and then you change it up. What's it going to look like going forward? How can people be decentralized while still offering the product and service that they're putting out into the world? How can they utilize the blockchain, NFTs, crypto in ways that make sense? Does it make sense for their business to transition into a DAO? And for a lot of nonprofits, that answer may be yes. But when you're a for-profit business, what does that look like? How can you be Web3 but still be a business? And I think that that's a challenge for sure for a lot of different businesses and business owners, because we own at the top, right? And I think that it's okay to continue to own. We have to continue to own. And to touch on what Hahz was talking about earlier, you know, ownership is something that I'm very, very passionate about. One way to relate to people making that transition